Hi, friends. The world got you down. Don't be sad. Listen to $2 Late Fee with Zach and Dustin.
$2 Late Fee is the podcast that celebrates the best decade of entertainment, the 1980s. We pick a movie and soundtrack from our youth that we loved and see if it holds up today. We also interview your favorite celebrities from that era.
All in the spirit of positivity and togetherness. Check us out at $2latefee.com. It is mind-blowing
and heartbreaking
how many original scripts are written every year but are never made.
So we seek out these scripts and bring them to life with full audio production and professional actors.
Check us out at Undiscovered Scripts.
Movies made of paper.
Wherever you get your podcasts.
Free!
Movie night. We are just about to enter spring, and there's a 10-year anniversary of the movie Spring. So Scott, tell
we're
us,
real sprung over
tell
here.
us what reason you could possibly have had to pick Spring.
I think that this is one of the best genre-bending horror movies of my adult life.
Counting down for it to be 10 years on this one.
I have forgotten how much I wanted this movie to be discussed on the show, and I feel like we're not going to get a funny episode out of it just because it's so good. You know, it's like too good for us.
Well, I mean,
we got to have them sometimes.
Let me tell you one of the notes that I wrote down, because I thought I went into this movie blind. I was under the impression I went into this movie blind, as evident by one of my notes where I wrote, I actually think Evan and Louise are a super likable couple. It bugs me that I know this is going to be a horror movie and that something terrible is going to happen to them, because there's a very sweet rom-com happening here, which, like, at the end of the day, it is like a romantic love story.
Yeah.
All in all.
It's a Lovecraftian love story.
Yeah, but then imagine my surprise when I went to rate it on Letterboxd and I had already rated it on Letterboxd.
Are you Kyle?
Implying
that's a very Kyle
implying
move.
that apparently I watched it and found it to be a 3-star movie, but this second time I found it to be a 3.5 to 4-star movie. So,
that's always nice. That's
It's a
always
grower,
nice
not a shower,
when you don't
guys.
hate a thing again. We'll say when you don't know and then you don't hate a thing again.
yeah, I was like, wait, why is this already rated?
This was a first time watch for me, and
You finished it about 10 minutes ago too. Which
I
is
did
perfect.
right before
I love
we recorded. This is a movie that I've wanted to watch for a long time, and I remember when it came out, it was like it was a bunch of lists. It seemed right up my alley, and I just never came back to it. And I like Benson Moorhead a lot. We've talked about him on the podcast before. Like, I really like a lot of what they do in this.
This is my favorite of theirs.
I was going to say, this is definitely the most Scott of their movies.
I think it's probably my favorite too, honestly.
And I really don't like Resolution.
Oh, I thought you didn't like The Endless.
Oh, I liked The Endless, and I did not. I didn't hate Synchronic. Synchronic, yeah. But I really love this movie, and I think that's why I don't love the other ones. But the interesting thing is that, like, Resolution, Spring, and The Endless are all interwoven. They're one story, which I love. I absolutely love
the shitty Carl
that.
trilogy or whatever. It's not what it's called. But.
No, but that's what we can call it. It's funny because the history of this for me is that I watched Resolution for Reddit Horror Club, right, man?
Maybe. I think this is the only movie I've ever watched from them.
So I'm almost positive that we discussed Resolution,
I'll check. Resolution
because I was like, this sucks.
Resolution may have been one of the few that I
didn't watch. Did you
and
lie and say you watched it?
But every once in a while there was one where there wasn't an episode, and I feel like there was one that there was
an
an episode.
Related.
I'll tell you, my favorite thing that these guys have any association with, though, is that they produced one of my favorite films of the last couple of years, which is, of course, After Midnight. the romantic monster.
Oh, that's
movie
right, they did.
with
Yeah.
Bria Grant. So like, it feels like knowing that and watching this, I'm like, oh, these movies are very similar, like vibes, like they're actual love stories.
Why would you ruin a perfectly good double feature?
I have a
man?
perfectly good double feature.
5 minutes in.
Don't you worry about that. I also was shocked because I didn't recognize him right away. The main actor in this movie, for the start of his career, Lou Taylor Pucci, I believe is how you pronounce the last name. I always thought he was a very underrated actor. Most of the people who listen to Horror Movie Night will know him from the Evil Dead remake from 2013. But what I remember him from is early in his career, he like really carved out a name for himself in doing these strange indie coming of age films like Thumbsucker. There was The Go-Getter. There was Chum Scrubber. Like he did these really weird art house teen movies that all of them I highly recommend. Especially Thumbsucker. Thumbsucker is fantastic. But I always thought he was this great actor, and then he kind of just like disappeared in a sense. But I guess it's hard to disappear when you're not a famous actor in the first place. He just started doing movies I wasn't aware of, and Spring was one of them. I think if I knew that he was the lead of Spring, I would have jumped on it a lot quicker because there was a point in time I remember in 2007, 2008 when I was living with my roommate Schropp in an apartment. We would that was when Netflix was primarily discs only. We would like go through these phases where we'd be like, let's get every single movie that's available on Netflix with this one actor that we really have like clung to, and he was one of them where we just like, this dude can't miss. And Spring is gonna join the catalog of this dude can't miss for me. Like he picks good, interesting roles, and I think that this is kind of more of a normal for what he has to do. It's kind of just a normal role, just like a depressed guy falling in love. Like it's a pretty easy role until the last like 10 minutes of the movie where you have to buy into something more insane. But
the thing is that it's such an easy job because Nadia Hilker and he have amazing chemistry,
and she is
gorgeous. Oh, she's so beautiful. That's the funny thing though, is that this movie would be nothing. This movie sucks on paper. Like if I was an executive, a movie producer, and somebody came up to me and gave me the elevator pitch for Spring, I'd be like, "Fuck you! You can't have $250,000."
I was trying to explain this to my girlfriend, and it was like, I was like, "Now hear me out. It's actually good. Like everything I'm saying is going to sound
romantic.
insane.
It's like kind of sexy.
Yeah.
Like it's a romantic drama with a woman who turns into
various monsters.
And there is this looming sadness that happens like both within her and her story and with Evan just being like, well, this can't last.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't just run away from your parents dying and you losing your job. And like I understand like you can because that's the dream, but a week goes by and how do you do that? You know, like
there's a
looming sadness that I love about it.
There's a world in this movie where it theoretically could have a very similar ending to like the ending of The Graduate, where it's like, you know, like The Graduate's ending is so famous because this couple runs away together, and then as you linger on their faces, the reality of like, well, what happens next?
Oh, shit.
Of starts to come across their face. And like you said, like Luis has literally given up, spoiler alert for those who haven't watched the movie, you should watch the movie, but like Luis has given up immortality for Evan.
Well, you don't know that until literally the last 30 seconds of the movie.
Well, I was going to say where the movie goes beyond that, though, is like Evan can't fuck this up. You know what I mean?
Evan can't fuck this up, and Louisa does not know what her body is going to tell her until the end, which is if there's not a metaphor for like true love or like love that you find, as Evan was soliloquizing at the end, love that you might find once or twice in your lifetime. Like if there is, it's just so it's so romantic. And honestly, I was kind of worried the first like third of the movie because I didn't like Evan. Like I wasn't
he's
like
not
really
super likable. You're not
he's
wrong.
not super, which is fine. Like I think,
but he's gone through a lot too. I think starting that movie holding his mother's dying hand is like, it's it's a very smart move because it gives the character a little grace if he's being shitty from that point on, because it's like it's like, okay, well, this dude just literally watched his mother's last breath, like let's give him a little empathy if he's like picking fights and being a piece of shit, which like I think that's a very smart move. And I also find, like, I wrote this down because I didn't know what this was going into it, and I wrote this kind of joking but also kind of sincere. That Flores joke's pretty good. Like the mom starts the movie telling a joke, and I'm like, you know what? Like that, the mom is even likable. The mom's on screen for like 30 seconds, and like just in the graceful way that she's trying to comfort him with humor, I'm just like, I love this woman. Like, it's like all of the sadness has this tinge of hopefulness, but to get to the end of the movie, you know, we're talking about like the Luis. And like, you know, she doesn't know what her body's going to do. But I think the flip side is like, if Evan's gamble is that they have actually fallen in love and that she won't transform, if he's wrong, it's not like he has anything to go back home to right now. Like, like I think there's that element of that too, where it's like, this is it. Like, if this isn't love, then I don't know what love is. And everyone that I know is gone, and I have nothing tethering me to living anyway. So if you turn into a monster that kills me, like, what more damage could you do to me in death that I'm not already experiencing through living right now? Like, it's kind of there is this malaise of sadness, but I think that's why I avoided this movie. Apparently, I don't know. Apparently I watched it, but why I thought I was avoiding this movie is like, just even the box art doesn't scream like happy, good, fun time to you. You know what I mean? Like, I was like,
no, I don't love that.
Well,
no.
I don't dislike it. I've never had a problem with it. I think that if you think about it in like a bit more historical sense of what box art and like what horror was doing in 2014,
it makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of ultra dark shit, and for them to have a pastel pink and orange sherbet type, you know, cover, I really like that. It's ballsy. You know, also, if you look at like the Resolution cover, it's super like, grimdark. You know, like it's got like a skull on the front, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that, like, also, I didn't realize that this was not really a sequel, but it was like in the same universe. It was happening to the same relative group of friends that Resolution was.
Can you explain this to me? How is this in the Endless?
Oh, okay. So we got away from this. So Resolution was the first movie in the trilogy, and then this in Spring is the second, and the Endless is the third. So in Resolution, it's about these guys that are out in the woods in this cabin, and there's like this spectral force, like an entity that kind of puts them in a time loop. It won't let them leave, and it all kind of plays out in this sort of like rewinding a videotape kind of thing.
Okay.
And they expand upon that in The Endless, because I only watched The Endless once, and I only watched Resolution once, but it's kind of like a bookend where the entity, the god that kind of like does these time loops, has a cult that the two brothers that escaped the cult or I think it was two brothers or whatever it was. These boys escaped this cult. They go back to this cult in their adulthood, and they try and kind of unravel the mystery. But the guy that Evan calls on the phone is one of the characters from Resolution and the Endless.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, but I went into Spring not knowing that, but I did go into the Endless knowing that it was going to be the culmination of this trilogy of movies. And I think that how much I love Spring made the Endless not hit quite as hard for me, but I still think it's a very good movie.
But is this kind of like, from what you're describing to me anyway, this feels like it feels like the Endless and Resolute need each other, whereas this is like a little mini side story that's just...
Yes, it's the same universe, but it's... Yeah. And the thing about Spring is that what I think I'm getting at with this is that I think it's such a unique and special movie in the fact that it's Lovecraftian. It's something that if Stuart Gordon would have got his hands on, in like 88, you know exactly what it would have been, right?
Yeah, well,
It would've been
I
super
get a
sleazy.
feeling we might be getting a sneak peek.
We're
going to
be talking about
on.
that. It's our what have we watched? Yes.
But
but the thing about this is that it's so heartwarming, but there is that kind of prevailing sadness in it, because I think you guys are missing the fact that Mount Vesuvius fucking explodes in the background because there's a cataclysm that could be indicative of a larger world cataclysm because of the fact that Louise did not transform. I think she was a dead man switch for Mount Vesuvius, if not other tectonic issues in the world, because her family was at Pompeii when Vesuvius exploded, and that's like the whole story, right? And so her mom was a chimeric kind of mutant, just like Louise is. And so I feel like it's almost a bit nihilistic in that way, where they're very selfish. Like Evan's very selfish because
he said as much like twice. I think he says
yeah.
He brings up his selfishness about the whole situation.
Yeah,
I mean, both one when literally leaving, and then the second directly to her.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's important because
it's kind of similar to the ending.
Young love is selfish.
Yeah,
right.
Well, I was gonna say it's also similar to Cabin in the Woods. Like that movie's essential.
Matt,
sorry. I'm just going where the conversation's taking us, but I mean, like that is another movie where a character kind of selfishly wants to live, but ultimately still dies. But now they've taken the entire world down with them. Like it's
that's a very type A kind of person.
Yeah,
like I don't care about like these are the rules. This is what I think is morally correct. I'm not going to sacrifice myself. I'm not going to sacrifice my beliefs, which is literally suicide. So I do have one critique of this movie, which is harder. It was worse in the second watch because it was only the second time I've watched this movie.
Okay.
Because it's so special that I don't. It doesn't have a whole lot of rewatchability for me because it's
apparently
such an
not for me
journey. Yeah, you had to fucking forget me now when you watched it. But for me, I really don't like the CGI of her, like when she's emaciated, when she's changing those 2 or 3 times you see her. It's real bad. But then they do practical, and I know that they only had enough money to do some of what they wanted to put on the screen.
My opinion is that like they were smart with how much time they showed and when they showed as well.
Agreed, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's like we do see these subtle things like the bathroom transformation or like the lizard face where she kills the guy who thinks she's a prostitute.
Love the bathroom, like the post like shower, being a mess. Love that bit.
I also really just like how gooey she is in her armpit a couple times, and that guy's like, "What the fuck is that smell?"
Yeah, but then we get a bigger version of like when she's like an octopus creature. I'm like, this works for me in a huge way, and that's obviously the most Lovecraftian of all the imagery. The only thing that really upset me was like, man, you couldn't have just like implied the rabbit death for that painting in the cave. Like,
listen,
we got like a crazy ass close up of like that thing getting sawed apart.
That's important because she literally says when she's making him dinner for the first time, he goes, "Oh, so you're vegetarian?" She goes, "I try to be, but sometimes I crave meat." Yeah. She didn't want to eat that rabbit. She sacrificed the one rabbit, Sally, I guess, and then Curtis or whatever the other rabbit. That's right. Thank you. Yeah. She sacrificed the one rabbit and she used the blood on the wall just to paint. And then she didn't want to change. She didn't want to eat the other rabbit, but she did. And she didn't want to eat that guy. I think it's showing the increasing hunger and inability to control her transformations. And she's very unhappy about it. Yeah. By the way, we've been talking for quite some time. Very parched.
You feeling parched? What do you got over there, buddy?
What do you got?
I have Jeremy's Changed by Nebo. I've never heard of it before, but it or Fontaflora Brewery, but it's got a big old jellyfish on the front now. It's like works for me. It's got changes.
How about you, Kyle? You've been talking quite a bit too. Are you thirsty?
Parched. So I actually, because I didn't quite know spring and I got the beer before spring, and it still kind of works. So we were talking about this rabbit thing. She was exploring rituals and trying to figure out more about how to deal with this. I got Sea Hag from New England Brewing
Pretty
Company.
fucking close.
Sea Hag
I love
pretty
it.
close.
Yeah.
It was pretty close.
It's pretty impressive. And I'm drinking a bottle of water.
Cheers.
So
Oh, I mean, so you're saying hydrated
Just
like
straight
a,
from
like
the
a mermaid.
sea.
Yeah. And just as an FYI, I tried to read this book maybe a month and a half ago at this point that Book Talk suggested me, and it was called "And Those We Drown" or something like that, but it's about killer mermaids. Fucking terrible. I only made it about 50 pages, but I have another one on the docket. I think I'm gonna read it next. After the one I'm working on right now, I'm gonna read one called Chlorine, which is literally about a woman who changes into a killer mermaid. So, and that's gotten really good reviews as well. I'm hoping that one doesn't let me down. It's also much smaller than the other one that was really sucky. So, if I hate it, I can still soldier through 200 pages. I can't soldier through 500 pages.
Yeah, that's fair.
Too much. It's too much.
Hi, friends. The world got you down. Don't be sad. Listen to $2 Late Fee with Zach and Dustin.
$2 Late Fee is the podcast that celebrates the best decade of entertainment, the 1980s. We pick a movie and soundtrack from our youth that we loved and see if it holds up today. We also interview your favorite celebrities from that era.
All in the spirit of positivity and togetherness. Check us out at $2latefee.com.
It is mind-blowing
And heartbreaking.
how many original scripts are written every year but are never made.
So we seek out these scripts and bring them to life with full audio production and professional actors.
Check us out at Undiscovered Scripts,
Movies made of paper.
wherever you get your podcasts.
Free.
We're making an ad.
Napping
Yeah.
ads.
I hear that Gary Sinise is free.
Oh, okay, great.
He hasn't worked since 2020.
So, what would be the script that we would have Gary Sinise say for the Napping Through Happy Hour podcast?
Listen to this damn show. Damn it.
The Napping Through Happy Hour podcast brought to you by Geekscape.
Real life, real drama, real time.
I'm Gary Sinise.
That's the
That's
ad.
the ad.
That's the ad. That's the ad.
So, Scott, you've gotten a drink in you. We've talked about spring, but let's say you were watching spring and wanted to watch something else. What would that other thing be?
Man, I was literally gonna say The Cabin in the Woods. And it also has a killer mermaid in it. So I can't do that. So why don't you come back around to me? I'm gonna think for a second while you guys do yours.
All right, Kyle, how about you? Because I have the dumbest double feature ever. So.
I want to watch Dagon, or Dagon as I would call
Okay.
it.
Well, guess what, Kyle? You're in luck.
Yeah.
If you haven't checked the,
That's been a Scott long list pick for a long time, but it sounds like it's
and
made
it became
to
a
the
Scott
short
short
list.
list pick. It bumped something else out because of watching Spring.
Yeah, no, I mean
It's not good, but it also is Stuart Gordon. So.
But I think it has. I mean, it's not a romantic body horror by any means, but it has a lot of, and not just like aquatic monster Lovecraftian shit, but it, like thematically, I feel a lot of similar feelings of being in this foreign land and all this stuff and this like kind of love, and I enjoy the movie. It has even worse CGI, but I do enjoy the movie.
But it does have it has some fun gooiness to it still. From what I remember, I've watched it twice, so it'll be my third watch for the show. Matt, go ahead, and then I know exactly what I'm going to do.
If you remove all of the monster from this movie, it reminds me of one of my all-time favorite films, which is, of course, Before Sunrise with Ethan Hawke.
Wait, what?
Have you ever seen the Before Sunrise?
I thought you were going to say Harold and Maude.
No.
I was like, okay.
No,
I don't
Before
know.
Sunrise. It's just Ethan Hawke and Julie Depley walking around Paris for an entire night having a conversation and falling in love. I was like,
I did not know that was one of your favorite movies.
Oh, I
but
love
that makes
that movie.
absolute sense.
yeah.
Absolute sense.
Yeah.
Isn't there a sequel
There's
that they
3.
did
It's a
too?
trilogy. Every 10 years, they followed up with them to see where their lives had ended up. So it's actually pretty interesting. The first one is them meeting in Paris. And then 10 years later, Ethan Hawke's character has written a book about that experience in Paris. And she happens to be in New York while he's doing a book signing for it. And they catch up because they haven't talked in 10 years. And then the next one 10 years later is that they are like officially married and like living a happy life from that second film. So Richard Linklater is like, I feel like that was like his beginning of what would become like Boyhood. And now he's doing a musical that's going to be shot in the same way as Boyhood, where they're filming parts of it over 10 years.
Wow.
So like I mean I'm all for it. I will take that over digital de-aging characters to show passage of time any day. But Linklater's the only person I trust.
You weren't a big fan of Beau is Afraid?
Yeah, that was rough. All right, so Scott, double feature.
So this is if I was in the trust tree, safe space at home.
Okay.
Start with Spring, and then go a little bit back in time to a little film we like to not talk about called Humanoids from the Deep.
Oh, yes. That makes sense.
It is. It's kind of the same vibe, but just like really sleazy.
I don't know if we've ever.
It's a great B picture film.
I don't know if we've ever talked about this. I feel like we're never going to follow through with this plan, so it's worth talking about it.
What, to do Humanoids from the Deep?
There was a point where I think it was going to be an April Fool's Day episode. We were going to put out an episode that said it was Humanoids from the Deep, and what we were going to do is record like a 15-minute cover of different friends singing Fish Fuck by Guar and doing a 15-minute cover of Fish Fuck.
Can you imagine a 15-minute cover of Fish Fuck?
Just singing the same verse over and over again. But with different guest vocalists, it would have been great. But yeah.
Yeah. I feel like maybe we get Krista Makes involved and we could make that really. I'm sure that Krista Makes would want to have his name on that.
All right. Well, let's do a quick.
What's going on?
What's going on? I mean, not much, man. We're going to Creature Feature Weekend. That is quickly approaching. That is April, I want to say 19th to the 21st. So come and hang out with us April 19th to the 21st.
Bring your weed because it's 420.
Baby. Yeah. And in the meantime, also visit our website, hmnpodcast.com. Hit up our Patreon, patreon.com/HMN podcast, and just have a good time. But now, Scott, I have to ask you, even though I think I know what the answer is, what have you been watching, etc., that you want to talk about?
I want to talk about Suitable Flesh.
Oh, boy. Kyle,
are we all
going to
talk about Suitable Flesh?
Kyle failed us.
Kyle! Son of a bitch!
I know.
You know what? Fuck you. We're doing it anyway.
I'm watching Spring 10. Yeah, no, and you should. I really want to hear what you guys have to think. It'll probably be 5 years before I watch it.
Yes, you'll forget everything we said.
Which just sucks, because I go Cuse. I love Joe Lynch, but I'm just really bad at movies. Have I said that?
Which is the most ironic shit.
Please tell me. I'm very excited to hear your thoughts.
Well,
both of y'all.
So, Kyle, do you know anything about it?
I do.
Okay.
I'm aware of the themes and the plot, and probably know more about it than I want to going in. So I
mean, and I did too. It's still fun because it's about the ride. I don't really think that it's that much. It's a body swap movie. It's not like you're not going in being like, and it's also a Lovecraftian, Cthulhu, Shaggoth, old gods.
Yeah, it's based on one of his short stories. I don't remember which one.
And so you're not going to have a happy ending, so you kind of know what you're getting yourself into. So it's really about the performances, which I loved. I thought that Heather Graham absolutely killed it. I thought that,
and I've missed her.
I love seeing Barbie.
I feel like it was like one of those things where she showed up and I was like, where has Heather Graham been the last couple of years?
I didn't
Let me
know
tell
that
you,
she
she's
could kill
great
it,
in the
dude.
Flowers in the Attic series. She was fucking great in the Flowers in the Attic.
They made a Flowers in the Attic series?
For Lifetime, dude. I'm sorry, it was a series of films. So Flowers in the Attic.
I know what you meant.
Yeah. But for Lifetime, she played mom. And she was great. She went full sleeves, as far as
really
Lifetime
leaning
can go.
into the full sleeves as she does in Suitable Flesh.
I would have never known.
Yeah,
I love it for her.
Yeah. Suitable Flesh is very sleazy. The sex is hilariously dirty.
Yeah.
I love it. I don't mean that it's erotic. That's what I mean. Is it's so sleazy that you're not turned on by it, except when Asa
is in her
the
body.
guy played by Judah Lewis. The part when he goes down on her and she's right by the window, and then or is that the first time they fuck? I can't remember. I think it's the second time. In any case, I was blown away by just how over the top it got. I don't have any positive or negative feelings about Joe Lynch, so I didn't really have that going into it. But there's a point where the old man gets fucking decapitated and his head is held up by his son, who obviously the entity that was inside of the old man is now in the son. Its body jumped. And Heather Graham goes screaming out the door, and he's holding the severed head in front of him, and he goes, "Too much!"
Yeah.
And it was so fourth wall, but not. It was like meta, but like really in the story, and so those moments really just made it for me.
Yeah, I would say I've definitely not seen all of his movies, but I feel like Joe Lynch is kind of what we all thought Adam Green was going to be when Hatchet first came out. Like he's achieving a lot more of that, which is like, you know, like his segments in Chillerama are really fun. Apparently wrong.
Which one did he do in Chillerama? You've told me at least 2 times. On
He
the
did
show,
the
but I can't
zombie movie was his segment.
He did like the
wraparound
like,
segment
with the ending, like with the full.
Oh, he did Mayhem.
He did Mayhem.
So
he did
good.
Knights of Bad Assdom. He did.
Wait, no. That is that actor or is that director?
No, that's director for both of those. Yep. And then apparently he did the best Wrong Turn movie with Wrong Turn 2, Dead End. But you know, who knows what the bar is on that truly. So for me, I think the movie is fun. I don't know if it's one I'm going to rewatch anytime soon, but the fun of watching Suitable Flesh to me is being the like fan of the 90s full moon movies and the Stewart, like this and Castle Freak are like one and the same. Like they just both check that very like I think that
You're talking about the original Castle Freak from '88, not the remake, right?
I'm talking about whatever the one is with Jeffrey Combs.
Yeah. That's the 88, 89 one.
I forgot that.
Yeah, but like,
isn't Barbie Crampton in that one?
Well, yeah, but that's because Barbara Crampton and Stuart Gordon made like every movie together, which that's why I was like casting
She's
her
awesome
is
for
perfect.
that.
Like casting her in this is perfect because clearly, if he had made this movie when supposedly Stuart Gordon wanted to, she would have been playing the Heather Graham character.
And she's such a champion of the genre and of the filmmakers that she does work with. Like she's dude, she's so.
But that's like, I think what it all comes down to is like, I like this movie, but I know that if this was Stuart Gordon's full vision in the 90s, I would have loved it. Like this is like one of those ones where it's like, I'm saddened when I watch it because I'm like, man, if only this was a movie I had rented at like 14 from like the mom and pop's video store instead of like a new movie that I'm streaming on an app on my couch in my 30s.
Well, here's the
thing. I almost bought it on DVD at Walmart. I was walking through Walmart, God forgive me, but they had the DVD there because it had just come out that week, and it's $12.99 for the DVD, and I was like,
but you know what?
But I was so happy to see the cover art.
I'm gonna say this because listen, it's easy to trash on Walmart because they're a terrible business, but now that fucking Target seems to just be like DVD, who needs it? Like Walmart always has a very well-stocked DVD section of new movies.
They do. They have really good
and a
relationships
lot of like
with some
indie
of the
films.
indie distributors, and it's
like I'm shocked.
It's wild.
The movies that I've bought from Walmart were movies sometimes I'm like, I didn't even know this had a physical release, but it did for Walmart apparently.
Sometimes my uncle will pick up a weird ass movie from Walmart, and then like we get to talk about it. Like he's a layman to this genre, but I get to talk, But because he bought it at Walmart for $5, we get to have a conversation.
Like I was like, man, I hate that I have to go to Walmart now because Target's like stocking like one new DVD every week or whatever. Yeah, You're like, well, I don't care that your indie film came out. We have 2,000 copies of the new Mission Impossible to get rid of. It's like,
help us.
If you're looking for a new CD, sorry. All we have is these Taylor Swift reprint albums to sell.
Yes. Oh my God.
It used to be an end cap. Now it's literally the entire CD collection.
The whole collection. It's insane. This kind of ties it. I wasn't planning to talk about Suitable Flesh today, but whatever. It's checked off my little box because I was eventually going to get there. Last time we recorded, I talked about watching Lady Frankenstein. Or Lisa Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And then immediately I went back to the theaters to watch a different new Frankenstein movie that's Academy Award nominated, and that, of course, is Poor Things, starring Emma Stone and Willem Dafoe. And, I mean, it's great. It's it's probably I'm working my way through all of the Best Picture nominees before. This will come out after the Oscars, but I'm trying to see all of them before the Oscars. So I sat through Oppenheimer yesterday.
Longtime listeners know that this is what you're
This
doing.
is what I'm
They're not
obsessed
gonna be
with. Yeah.
surprised.
And this year it's been kind of easier than ever because only 3 of the 10 Best Picture films aren't available on a streaming site right now. So that's been nice. But Poor Things was not on a streaming site. I had to go to the theater to see it. And it's really good. I don't think it's my favorite film from this director, who I can never pronounce his name, but he did The Lobster and Killing of a Sacred Deer. And my favorite of his films is, ironically, The Favorite. But this is pretty good. I feel like it could have been maybe 20 minutes shorter, like 2 hours and 20 minutes is a hell of a runtime. But it is. I think it's the movie of the films that are nominated so far. It is, if not my favorite, my top 2 of the nominees. But I am also very well aware that, like, unfortunately, it came out the year that Oppenheimer did, so it doesn't stand a goddamn chance of taking home most of the statuettes. Rambling aside, Poor Things, really fun, really good. Just like the weird, the idea of the movie, for those who don't know, is that Willem Dafoe is this mad scientist, and through every scene in his house, there is a different shot of an animal with a different animal's head just doing stuff. Like it's just supposed to be like, for all these years, he's just been like, let's see if we can put a pig's head on a chicken. And like, you'll just see like a chicken just come like walking across the screen with a pig head on it and stuff like that.
They had Taco Bell toys when I was a kid that you would have.
For Poor Things?
It was, they were Poor Things sponsored.
No, they were
Taco Bell toys in 95.
It was at Taco Bell, Scott. They were for Poor Things. It's different than
That's true. It's true. But they were half and half animal. I used to do that all the time, and I'm so glad that it translates well
into an Oscar nominated film.
Listen, an Oscar nominated adaptation of Frankenhooker, because that's literally what happens in the movie.
Let's go.
Is Emma Stone is a Frankenstein woman,
so I don't have to watch
who
it.
starts hooking at a certain point, working at a brothel, and the only difference is that people don't explode when she has sex with them. But
it's coke.
Yeah, but it's very good. It's very fun. It's never not lighthearted, which is what I was hoping for, because like The Lobster had this element of dread that I didn't love. I can never watch Killing of a Sacred Deer again. Like, that movie was like emotionally brutalizing. But The Favorite is my favorite one because he found this level of like, okay, we're in this weird timeless period, and like there's this love triangle, but it never felt like anything was sincere at that point. Like, it was so ripped from the world that we understand, where it's like, you know, Victorian people having very slow dances, like listening to classical music while doing modern day hip hop dance moves. Like, it's just like, this is so in a whole nother realm that I'm not worried. And Poor Things was like in that same vein, where it was just so in its own fantastical world that he built, that you're just like along for the ride and enjoying the visuals and all that. So highly recommend Poor Things, even though I'm sure by the time you're listening to this, you're like, the movie that won no Oscars? Yes. All right, and Kyle, take us home with what you didn't you didn't watch instead of not watching Suitable Flesh.
No kidding. Well, you know, I realized upon us releasing that little bonus episode of Stranger in the Woods that I actually never talked about the movie separately. I actually having watched the movie, right? So I just figured I would just touch on that for a second, because we've gotten so into the conversation of filmmaking and what it's like for, you know, a first-time writer and actors to be able to do this thing together. So it's a really fun conversation to have, but we didn't really touch on the movie. So Stranger in the Woods is out. It's director Kyle Newacek, and it's a fun, tense thriller. It's a thriller. Like, I think that, you know, it has some horror elements to it. You know, the synopsis of 5 friends go to the woods because one of them needs some R&R because she just survived a suicide attempt, so her friends are trying to like comfort her, but it's young adults in the woods that now don't have a clear line of communication of like how to deal with each other. Like, they're trying to do this nice thing, and clearly they are not all on the same page, you know, and And I think that premise is more exciting for me as a viewer than the horror or the thrillerness that comes along with it. You know what I mean? Like, I think all the lead up to that is great. It feels like if somebody was like kind of telling you a true crime story and you were watching a reenactment.
Right.
For better or worse. You know what I mean? Like, I think that there's some great characters. There's some stuff that gets turned on its head. But all in all, it's also kind of like a straight, just like pop on a thriller, enjoy some of the tenseness, and go from there. You know, it's hard for me to be like, you know, I love what they were able to do with what they had. But it's also like, it's very good. It's not like my favorite genre, but some people love those tense, just like real life people things. Yeah. And there's something to be said for that. So that was my take on it. But we really did have a fun conversation. It
was a great bonus episode. I loved listening to it, man.
Yeah, talking about the flick. So, but at the end of it, we were like, they were asking me off record what I thought of the movie, and I was like, oh yeah, we didn't talk about that like on the show.
Oops.
So, oops.
Well, you know, you said it was a thriller, and I barely know her.
Ah, man.
Damn.
So that was our episode on Spring.
You really sprung that one on me.
I did. I sprung that one on you. Next week, we're going to talk about a movie that has a 20 or 30-year anniversary on the horizon, picked by Kyle.
God, I'm so tired of celebrating.
Yeah. Oh, all of the celebration. Come on. So come on back next week to hear what we have to say about next week's movie. But we're not going to tell you what it is. Stay tuned.
Hi, friends. The world got you down. Don't be sad. Listen to $2 Late Fee with Zach and Dustin.
$2 Late Fee is the podcast that celebrates the best decade of entertainment, the 1980s. We pick a movie and soundtrack from our youth that we loved and see if it holds up today. We also interview your favorite celebrities from that era.
All in the spirit of positivity and togetherness. Check us out at $2latefee.com.
It is mind-blowing
And heartbreaking.
how many original scripts are written every year but are never made.
So we seek out these scripts and bring them to life with full audio production and professional actors.
Check us out at Undiscovered Scripts,
Movies made of paper.
wherever you get your podcasts.
Free.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.